I didn't realize something was wrong until the third day. And by then he already knew exactly where I was camping. I'm not someone who does things impulsively. I plan. I research. I make lists. So when I decided to hike a section of the Appalachian Trail alone, I spent 3 months preparing for it. I bought the right gear. I studied the terrain maps. I told my sister exactly which trailhead I was starting from, which shelters I planned to stop at, and what day I expected to reach the end. I even downloaded the offline trail maps in case my phone signal dropped, which it almost certainly would. I was 31, reasonably fit, and I'd done solo day hikes before. This was my first multi-day solo trip, but I wasn't naive about it. I knew the risks. Wildlife, weather, injury. The usual things people worry about when you tell them you're hiking alone. Nobody warned me about the other kind of risk. The trail section I chose ran through western North Carolina, 5 days, roughly 60 miles. Remote enough to feel like a real wilderness experience, but not so remote that I couldn't get out if something went wrong. I parked my car at the southern trailhead on a Tuesday morning in late October. The parking lot was nearly empty. One other car, an older blue sedan with a cracked rear bumper, was parked near the far end. I didn't think anything of it. I signed the trail register, adjusted my pack, and started walking. The first 2 days were everything I needed them to be. Cool air. Ridge views that went on for miles. The sound of wind through the trees, doing that slow, deep sound that reminds you how small you are. I camped at designated shelters both nights, and on the first night, I was completely alone. On the second night, a couple in their 50s arrived around dusk. We talked briefly over dinner, shared a fire for an hour, and turned in early. They were heading south. I was heading north. By morning, we went our separate ways. That second morning felt clean. I remember that specifically, like the whole trip was clicking into place. That afternoon, I stopped at a stream crossing to refill my water bottles. The filter pump was slow, so I sat on a rock and just listened to the water for a while. At some point, I became aware of footsteps on the trail behind me. Not close. Maybe 100 yards back. I turned and saw a man coming around the bend. He was alone, like me. Probably late 40s. Medium build. He had a large pack that looked older, like gear from a previous decade. His hiking poles were mismatched. One was taller than the other. He slowed when he saw me. Then gave a short wave. I waved back. He came to the stream, maybe 15 feet from where I was sitting, and bent down to splash water on his face. We exchanged the usual trail pleasantries. Beautiful out here. Getting cold at night. Far you going? His name, he said, was Dale. I told him my name. I told him where I was headed. I don't know why I did that. Force of habit, probably. You talk to people on the trail. It's just what you do. He nodded, filled a bottle without filtering it, and kept walking north. Same direction I was heading. I watched him go until the trail curved and he disappeared into the tree line. Something about the interaction sat with me. Not anything specific, just a low-grade discomfort, the kind you feel and immediately argue yourself out of. He was just a hiker. People hike alone. I was hiking alone. That's what this trail is for. I packed up and kept going. I reached that night's shelter around 5 in the afternoon. It was empty. I chose a spot near the back wall, hung my food bag from the bear cable, and made dinner while the light faded. Around 7, I heard footsteps on the approach trail. Dale walked into the shelter clearing. He looked at me, then looked around the shelter. There were 6 open spots. He set his pack down at the far end and didn't say much. We exchanged a few words while we each made dinner, but he wasn't talkative. I wasn't either, suddenly. I stayed up reading on my phone longer than I usually would have, just not wanting to be the first one asleep. When I finally turned my headlamp off, I could hear him breathing on the other end of the shelter. Steady. Slow. Like he'd been asleep for hours already. I lay there for a long time before I finally drifted off. Day 4. I woke at first light, and Dale was already gone. That should have been a relief. It wasn't. There's something quietly unsettling about waking up and realizing someone left before you even opened your eyes. I had no idea how long he'd been watching me sleep before he walked out. I packed faster than usual and got on the trail by 7. The day was overcast. The light was flat and gray, the kind that makes distances hard to judge. I pushed my pace. The terrain was rougher in that section, more climbing, longer descents. By midday, I'd barely stopped. My legs were tired, but I kept moving. Around 2 in the afternoon, I crested a long ridge and stopped to eat a bar and check my map. From up there, I could see maybe a quarter mile of trail behind me, winding down through the switchbacks below. I scanned it out of habit. There was a figure on the trail, moving steadily upward. Using 2 mismatched poles, I stared for a moment, then put my map away and walked. I reached the next shelter before dark and made a decision. I wasn't going to stay there. I kept walking for another 40 minutes until I found a flat area off-trail, well hidden behind a stand of hemlocks. No shelter, no established campsite, just ground. I set up my tent without a light. I ate cold food straight from the bag so I wouldn't have to use my stove. I kept my headlamp off all night. I told myself I was being paranoid. I almost believed it. At some point past midnight, I heard footsteps on the trail. The main trail, maybe 30 yards from where I was. Slow, deliberate footsteps. They stopped. I lay completely still inside my tent. Not breathing through my nose, mouth open, slow and shallow. The footsteps didn't continue. They didn't retreat. They just stopped. I don't know how long I lay there, long enough for my left hand to go numb from gripping my trekking pole, long enough for the silence to feel like a physical weight. Eventually I heard movement again, slow at first, then fading north, and then nothing. I didn't sleep. I broke camp before sunrise and walked out, not to the planned northern trailhead, back south, back toward my car. I moved fast and quiet and kept looking behind me on every ridge. The trail felt completely different going south. Smaller, more enclosed. I didn't stop for water until I absolutely had to. I reached the southern trailhead parking lot at early afternoon. My car was where I left it. The blue sedan with the cracked bumper was still there too. I drove straight to the nearest town and filed a report with the county sheriff's office. They were polite and thorough. They took a description of Dale. They said they'd look into it. They noted that stopping on a trail and hiking the same direction as someone else wasn't technically illegal. That sleeping at the same shelter wasn't illegal. That standing on a public trail at night wasn't illegal. They were right. A deputy called me the following week. They'd reviewed the trail register entries for that section. Someone named Dale had signed in twice. The handwriting was neat and careful. In the notes column, where most hikers write nothing, he had written the same 2 words both times. Enjoying the solitude. That was 8 months ago. The blue sedan was eventually traced to a man with no criminal record. No history of anything. Just a man who hiked alone. They never found a reason to do anything else about it. I still think about what the deputy said when I asked if I'd been in real danger. He paused for a long time before he answered. Then he said something I've never been able to shake. He said he didn't know, and that the ones you never find out about are the ones that keep him up at night. I've thought about that a lot. Not because it was surprising, because when he said it, he didn't sound like he was trying to comfort me. He sounded like he meant it.